We're on the record in two cases. First case is Style, the state of Texas versus Sebastian Gonzalez. And we have Mr. Gonzalez in court. We have Mr. uh, Charles Rojas or Charlie Rojas, who's here representing Mr. Gonzalez. Mr. Gonzalez does not speak English, uh, but however, his attorney, Mr. Rojas, is fluent in English and Spanish. Therefore, Mr. Rojas will interpret for Mr. Gonzalez. And is it correct, Mr. Gonzalez speaks Spanish, is that correct?
That's correct, Your Honor.
All right. Now, just Mr. Rojas, would you please raise your right hand? Please swear him in.
You promise, Russ, you'll accurately translate Spanish to English, English to Spanish, so be done.
Okay. Mr. Gonzalez, would you please raise your right hand? Mr. Gonzalez, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God? You may put your hand down, Mr. Gonzalez. How are you doing, Mr. Gonzalez?
Good.
All right. Mr. Gonzalez, you're here represented by your attorney, Mr. Charlie Rojas. How are you doing, Mr. Rojas?
Good, Your Honor.
Mr. Gonzalez, I have before me an information that charges you with the Class A misdemeanor offense of driving while intoxicated with an alcohol concentration of 0.15 or more. Mr. Gonzalez, specifically, this information alleged that on or about January 28 of 2020, while you were operating a motor vehicle in a public place in Jefferson County, Texas, that you committed the Class A misdemeanor offense of driving while intoxicated with an alcohol concentration level of 0.15 or more. And Mr. Gonzalez, do you understand what you've been charged with?
Yes.
And to discharge Mr. Gonzalez, how do you plead? Guilty, not guilty, or no contest?
Guilty.
Now, Mr. Gonzalez, are you pleading guilty because you are guilty?
Yes.
And are you pleading guilty? Well, and Mr. Gonzalez, are you pleading guilty freely and voluntarily?
Yes, volunteer.
Now, Mr. Gonzalez, I have before me a document that is titled Misdemeanor Plea Admonishment. It's also referred to as State's Exhibit Number 1. Do you recognize this document?
Yes.
Now, there are some initials at the bottom of this document, right on the line that says citizenship. Are these your initials?
Yes, my initial.
I will read the paragraph where the initials are located. And it states that if you are not a U.S. citizen, a plea of guilty or nola contendere may result in your deportation, exclusion from admission to the country, or denial of naturalization under federal law. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Now, are you a U.S. citizen?
No.
And what country are you from?
Guatemala.
Guatemala? Okay, now I was looking at the consular notification and access countries and jurisdiction with mandatory notification. Apparently, Guatemala is not on the list, so we can go forward. Now, also on State's Exhibit number 1 on page 2, are these your initials on the line that says guilty?
Yes.
And on page 3, is that your signature on the line that says defendant?
Yes.
I have another document here. This document is titled The Trial Court Certification of Defendant's Right of Appeal. Do you recognize this document?
Yes.
And is that your signature above the line that says defendant?
Yes.
There are 2 boxes that are checked at the top of this document. The first box states that this is a plea bargain case and you have no right of appeal. Do you understand this? The second box that's checked states that you are waiving, which means you're giving up your right to an appeal. Do you understand that?
Yes.
I have another document here. Do you recognize this document?
Yes.
And is this your signature on the second line?
Yes.
Prior to signing and initialing these documents, did your attorney, Mr. Rojas, go over these documents in Spanish? And did you understand everything that he went over?
Yes.
And is everything in these documents true and correct to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
State, I have before me State's Exhibit number 1. State, you like to offer State's 1?
Yes, Your Honor.
Objection.
Okay, no objection. State's Exhibit number 1 will be admitted. Mr. Rojas, you have advised and counseled Mr. Gonzalez. Is there any evidence that he is currently mentally incompetent to stand trial?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Gonzalez, your attorney, Mr. Rojas, has advised and counseled you. Are you satisfied with his representation?
Yes.
Has he provided full, effective, and competent legal representation?
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez, I will accept your plea of guilty. I will find that you are mentally competent to stand trial. I will also find that your plea of guilty and waivers were freely and voluntarily given. And I will also find that there is sufficient evidence to find you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. State, do we have a plea bargain agreement?
Yes, Your Honor.
What is that agreement?
1 year probated over 18 months, a $1,000 fine, DWI standard, 80 hours of community service, and interlock. And it's to run concurrent with 326706.
Mr. Gonzalez, The state is offering that you serve, actually it's 365 days or 1 year in jail. But you would not have to serve any time in jail because you will be on probation for 18 months. During the 18-month probationary period, you will be required to pay a fine of $1,000 and court costs of $417, which comes to a total of $1,417. You will also be required to pay probation fees of $60, a urinalysis fee of $15, and you'll also be required, now this will be divided, and you'll have to pay monthly installments of $160. You would also have to pay to the Jefferson County DWI education class an initial evaluation fee of $125 on the day of the plea. If further evaluation is needed, you will be required to pay $50. Mr. Gonzalez, would you be able to pay the fine, fees, and costs that I just mentioned over your probationary period?
Yes.
And you will be required to perform 80 hours of community service. You have to attend the DWI education class and alcohol assessment. And you would have to install an interlock device on any vehicle that you own or operate. This case will run concurrent. This case number is wrong. This case number is wrong. You said it's running concurrent. It's only 5 numbers. It should be 6 numbers. This case will run concurrent with cause number 326706. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's what we did not.
And cause number 326536 will be dismissed. Do you understand the state's offer?
Yes.
Do you think that the state's offer in your case is fair and just?
Yes.
And do you accept the state's offer?
Yes.
Okay. I'll follow the plea bargain agreement that you have entered into with the state. Now, Mr. Gonzalez, I have another case here. And this case is cause number 326706. And this case is styled the state of Texas versus Sebastian, is that Cuyuch Gonzalez. In this information, it alleges that on or about October 6th of 2018, while you were in Jefferson County, Texas, operating a motor vehicle in a public place, that you committed the Class A misdemeanor offense of driving while intoxicated with an alcohol concentration of 0.15 or more. Mr. Gonzalez, do you understand what you've been charged with in this case?
Yes.
And to this offense, how do you plead? Guilty, not guilty, or no contest?
Guilty.
Now, are you pleading guilty freely and voluntarily?
Yes.
And are you pleading guilty because you're actually guilty?
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez, I'm gonna show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 1. Do you recognize this document?
Yes.
On the bottom of this document, there are some initials. Are these your initials?
Yes.
And the initials are on near the paragraph that says citizenship. Is that correct?
Yes.
Are you a U.S. citizen?
No.
Okay. Okay. If you are not a U.S. citizen, a plea of guilty or nolle contendere may result in your deportation, exclusion from admission to the country, or denial of naturalization under federal law. Do you understand that?
Yes.
On page 2 of this same document, are these your initials on the line that says guilty?
Yes.
And on the next page of this document, is that your signature above the line that says defendant?
Yes.
And the next document that I have is court certification of defendant's right of appeal. Mr. Mr. Gonzalez, do you recognize this document?
Yes.
And is this your signature on this document above the line that says defendant?
Yes.
There are 2 boxes that are checked at the top of this document. The first box says that this is a plea bargain case and you have no right of appeal. Do you understand that? And the second box says that you're waiving, which means you're giving up your right to appeal. Do you understand that?
Yes.
I also have before me a document that is titled Discovery Certification. Do you recognize this document? Is this your signature on the second line of this document? Now, prior to signing and initialing these documents, did your attorney, Mr. Rojas, go over these documents with you?
Yes.
And did he go over these documents in Spanish with you?
Yes.
Because you only speak Spanish, is that correct?
Yes.
Now, did you understand everything that Mr. Rojas went over?
Yes.
And is everything in these documents true and correct to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, everything's correct.
State, I have before me State's Exhibit number 1. State, you like to offer State's 1? You're on mute.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, no objections. State's Exhibit number 1 will be admitted. Mr. Rojas, you've advised and counseled Mr. Gonzalez. Is there any evidence that Mr. Gonzalez is mentally incompetent to stand trial?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Gonzalez, your attorney, Mr. Rojas, has advised and counseled you. Are you satisfied with his representation?
Yes.
Has he provided full, effective, and competent legal representation? Mr. Gonzalez, I will accept your plea of guilty. I will find that you are mentally competent to stand trial. And I will also find that your plea of guilty and waivers were freely and voluntarily given. I will also find that there is sufficient evidence to find you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. State, do we have a plea bargain agreement?
Yes, Your Honor.
What is the agreement in this case?
The state is offering 1 year probated over 18 months, no fine, 80 hours of community service, DWI standard, and interlock. And this is to run concurrent with 326390.
Mr. Gonzalez, the state is offering that you serve 365 days, which is a year in the county jail. However, you will not have to serve any time in the county jail because you'll be placed on probation for 18 months. During this 18-month probationary period, you will not be required to pay a fine. However, you will be required to pay court costs of $452. You'll also be required to pay probation fees of $60, a urinalysis fee of $15. You would also be required to pay on the day of the plea $125 DWI education class and initial evaluation fee, and $50 if a further evaluation is needed. Now, Mr. Gonzalez, you should bear in mind that these fees and fines and the cost will be adjusted because since you're already on probation, you would only have to pay one probation fee. And they may adjust the fee for the DWI education class because you've taken that in the previous case. Now, without the adjustments that's being made, the fee is $105 per month. Will you be able to pay that fee?
Yes.
All right. Now, you will also be required to perform 80 hours of community service. And this case will run concurrent with cause number 326.
390.
Hold on. Yeah, okay, 326-390. And cause number 326536 will be dismissed. Mr. Gonzalez, do you understand the state's offer?
Yes.
Do you think that the state's offer in your case is fair and just? And do you accept the state's offer?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Gonzalez, I'll follow the plea bargain agreement that you've made in this case. Mr. Gonzalez, you can stand on the X and follow the clerk's directions and have a good day.